Doing Something Collectively Means War by Yuji Krishnamurti. Hello everyone, this is author PB Flower. My published series is available on Amazon as ebook and paperback, and its name is All Call None. It's a trilogy. You know the age-old saying, united we stand and divided we fall. That saying is on the other side of war. In fact, I would say it has nothing to do with anything today or ever. What does being united even mean? I have no clue. The only time we are truly united is when we have a common enemy. Division and war is deep-rooted in humans. Let's not kid ourselves into believing we can progress and rule peacefully as one happy family on Earth. What would happen to these billion-dollar companies that produce weapons and ammunitions? As I said, division and war is part of us since the very beginning. When there is one party that wants to maintain status quo and there is another that wants to change, that division in idea is the cause of war. This is true at individual level as well. In family, in a neighborhood, at workplace, in a city, a state, growing all the way at the country level, and then on to the world. Yuji Krishnamurti had said that human nature remains the same wherever you go. And that is true even for time, past or future. It is a myth to think that the world is getting worse or that humanity is degrading or that it is somehow getting better. It is all subjective in comparison to ideas we have that of an ideal world. Yuji had said that the world cannot be a better place than what it is. We are so much divided at so many levels that it will scare you to compile a full-blown list of these divisions. We only happen to appear to be agreeing on some ideas, and then suddenly we are enemies when another conflict appears. Example, you and your neighbors. They might be, you might be on very good terms with them as such, but then they post a political view online which is in disagreement with your belief. Very few will let it go or would debate civilly on it and still be friends. These days it is that much easier to avoid people and don't agree with or troll them as a keyboard warrior. Yuji said always choose lesser of two evils and choose evil at the end of the day. It was, but of course, subjective telling. We create a false sense of unity by creating divisions. To find like-minded bunch of people who validate our stand or ideas. To talk about unity, we want to unify under a common belief system. But that's not unity at all. That's a classic example of division. Example, country directs patriotism and we draw lines and borders, including people with commonality, implicitly implying that what's outside this border is not mine. Then we pretend to be friends with those inside the borders on the basis of common enemies or shared values. Problem with the ideas as a belief system is it can possibly be any idea that an individual human could subscribe to. Race, ethnicity, language, culture, state, sports, political ideology, religion, country, lifestyle, and even food choices and economic status are a good measure of unity, aka division. It's like a big Venn diagram of belief system, and it's not black or white. We are more divided in many ways than we think we are united. We have false sense of unity only when there is a strong common enemy. What holds us together is fear, extreme greed, or attachment. Unity is a myth. It's a false sense of being unified but against a common cause or enemy. And it is a complex web with a combination of conflicting belief systems. It is always a package deal, never ideal. Example, you might support right-wing political stand but not believe in Christian religious values, or not believe in anti-abortion laws. In these instances, you prioritize what matters most. In other words, choose lesser of the two evils. Look at weird political alliances seen during elections, or two people, how two people standing against each other are now suddenly a part of the same team with conflicting values and beliefs. Like a communist nation that doesn't believe in religion, coalitions with an Islamic nation. In these unholy alliances, we try to work on a common goal of maintaining peace, but it's a hypocritical statement. Peace is always on their terms, on certain terms. It's always conditional. Some believe democracy is the only way to peace. Some believe it is religion. Some even don't care about the idea of peace at the national level unless it's personal. Peace has become a marketing word to sell your ideas to the society. It is to justify the use of violence to establish peace. War is always war of ideas, war of dominance, war to maintain the status quo. Yuji had said about ideas that nothing can be done at an individual level, and collectively it means war. So basically, groupism of beliefs and ideas is how violence operates in animal kingdom too, like turf fight or fight for a mate. It's driven by our nature, or native intelligence is what I call it, and have coined it in my series All Kal None. What's missing in the war of nature is propaganda and the AI system. In us humans, this AI, or artificial intelligence, has an operating theme where this AI approach is threatened of its existence if its belief is disturbed. So it gathers strength by numbers. It creates conflicts and keeps it going, keeps it alive. Now, anger and violence is an expression of nature. Destruction concept is also deep-rooted in every animal. It is just us humans that are weak with no native defense mechanism and need ideas or artificially driven intelligence via tools, etc., to survive. There is a quote in my series All Kal None. It is something that a character, Zenith, had said. We are nothing without our inventions. And more so now. Electromagnetic disruption will weed out many of us within days, if that were to happen. Now, coming back to war, we are at some kind of war with everything inside and outside of us all the time. Remember meditation as warfare? It is covered in my meditation and mental illness podcast. Please check it out. So the conflict is always there because we are bombarded with thoughts constantly, and it gains momentum and power by grouping. There is strength in numbers. No organization or group is holy. No belief system is superior. No human is innocent. I'm not implying that we are all sinners, not in religious sense at least, but we are all responsible for whatever we blame others for. My mom used to say we need two hands to clap. So any noise voicing a conflict is not possible without another player. Simply by saying, I don't want war, you have already started another belief system of peacekeepers. And sometimes they are more violent. Inciting protests, saying it's peaceful is also a belief system. It will have its consequences when met with a match. All it would take is one person to disagree with them. Peace protest turns violent in no time. Gandhiji was told that his non-violent method was stemming from same source as violence. That's because he also had a strong opinion and belief system, and the very idea of not using violence was meaningful because there was violence in the opposite. It was a byproduct of revolution. People refusing to conform without violence, but your need is the same to enforce your idea, and your root is the same: anger of being discriminated or ruled over by someone you didn't identify with. You cannot emphasize on your non-violence idea without violence standing against you. In my series, the character Eclavia explains this very concept to Zenith. Zenith hates rich people and how they indulge in luxury, but the luxury and overspending gives Zenith's modest and humble life an elevated feeling. Anything without comparison is nothing. In the end, during the partition of India, millions of peoples were killed. So why didn't the non-violent message land at the individual level? Why did the violent nature take over? Because religion was stronger than anything else. Religious belief of thousands of years was closer to the heart of people than non-violence. It's bigger than human existence, with the promise of afterlife, heaven. I have to tell this lesser known story about UG and Gandhi interaction. UG had said to Gandhi that his non-violence ways made more people die than violence, and that it has sprung from the same source. He added, saying, "What if a teeny weeny bullet were to end it all for you?" So Gandhiji replied to UG by saying, "So be it." And so it was. I mean, Gandhi died that way. This non-violence was very similar to suppression of sex, resulting in more sexual escapades by gurus. Focus is still on sex all the time. Abstaining from sex or violence is always putting focus on just that. Anything suppressed is going to come back with a vengeance. Cancel culture is also encouraging and feeding the war. Isolating someone because the owner of a company doesn't believe in it or in the ideas of another. Business is more personal now. I mean, what is the difference between business and personal anymore? I don't see any difference. Now, it's okay to believe in whatever you want to believe in, but it's not absolute or superior to others' belief. There's always an oddball out there. There's always someone else balancing the equation. The idea of my belief is holier than thou is only giving you license to do whatever you want to do. Anyway, upholding those ideas, your whole fake idea of peace fails you suddenly, followed by rationalizing your actions. Why do you need to rationalize? Your actions are what you meant to do. Rationalization came afterward, masking your violence with maintaining peace or teaching a lesson to someone who didn't agree with you. In the process, over the years, we have created monsters, both in others and inside us. It is to only put the spotlight on the bright side of things and feel good about ourselves. The whole obsession or this obsessive situation to constantly soothe ourselves or tell ourselves how good we are. It is far stronger drug than anything available in the world of pharma today. And in my series, the clever character had said that whatever we do in this world is to feel good. You know, humanity, war, sexuality, love, charity, anything we do, the end goal is always to feel good. It is because we are thankful to have misery in the world so that we can bring out the virtues in us, validate our goodness, and give meaning to our otherwise mundane life. How can one be the propagator of peace unless there is war? Do realize that war traders come in all forms, many times in the name of keeping peace or claiming to be a victim. It might seem the war starts due to negative emotions like greed, aggression, or even fear or insecurity, but fear is the only one that keeps peace. The fear that my neighbor will go lengths to destroy themselves and take me down in the process will keep me in check. If I don't respect that fear, then I start making excuses to spread my contrary belief. The whole idea of live and let live is natural to a balanced ecosystem due to fear. Yuji had said, survival of a cell is dependent on the next cell or the cell next to it. It's not love, it's just mutual security. You can't destroy someone without destroying yourself. It is inevitable. So let's talk about organizations, like these peacemakers. They are nothing but an extension of herd of buffaloes or pride of lions or beehives. Any alliance we form is to protect the collective best interests. There is a territory concept in animal kingdom too. As mentioned, they have turf war, but it's all settled without a concept of right or wrong, and it's all settled on the ground in a short time interval as a response, never with a deliberate or elaborate planning like us. In human world, the organization skills have accelerated like cancer growth. We all like to be the charitable ones as long as the homeless guy is not pitching a tent in my front yard. Some might even go that far. Humans are capable of anything to justify their value system. Now, all the online petition flag wavers can show support and stand in solidarity only because they like it. It's a sensual movement. Remember, it is always about feeling good. Empathy is, after all, stimulation of oneself in others' position. It is the most self-centered activity, and circle of empathy is ever shifting and relative. Like people who preach kindness for living beings and fight for pets or work at PETA to bring justice to people who abuse animals, but then they ate a steak or any kind of meat. And it can all be rationalized as per religion or personal preference, or they have been doing it, or whatever, any reason. They are doing what they want to do. It's not because it's right or the right thing to do. What I'm pointing out again is that the justifications to our action comes later, and the desire to act comes first. If there is a conflict, there are always two sides to the story, but we don't want to hear the other side if it's not conforming to our system. Have we ever considered that our belief system is subjective and that the other party is also right in their own way? If it is a game of virtuousness, then both the sides have points of validation. When man wants to play God, it's only natural that there will be a devil that shows up to make it a fair game. When universe is always in balance. This constant rating of good and bad, right or wrong, is exactly why we have ended up in this so-called disharmonious state. That's where Shiva comes in, the balancer. What we call peace is just a spell of silence between raging wars, inside and out. Illusion of peace and obsession of peaceful system is the very thing feeding the war. Being for or against is an unfortunate gift or disease of the mind, however you want to view it. You might think you're a fatalist, or perhaps you've got a stronger belief system, or that you will act appropriately when the urgency arrives. But you know what? These hypothetical situations are nonsensical. I explained this as moment of truth in many podcasts. We don't know how we will behave in the moment of truth. That is what shows you who you really are. But are you ready to face that? And that response might not be constant either. It is not a predictive pattern, as we are so attached to the notion of who we are, and that is a bundle of ideas which one would show up as a dominant as dominant in the moment of truth remains unknown until it surfaces. With biased media, mass hypnosis, and years of brainwashing, we think we are noble creatures. It's always the other guy who's the bad one. Or we have invented this confession gimmick to get a free pass of doing whatever we want to do. But here's the thing, just do what you want to do. Don't tell me what I should do, or even ask me to come and pat your back when you are proud of your stand. I mean, you don't need me. There are enough humans to do that mutual admirations dance with you. There are more than enough common belief set organizations to substantiate your civil and human stand. As mentioned earlier in this podcast, it is all about status quo. A group or organizations of common belief system want to maintain the status quo, and countries are probably the highest abstracted belief system, very similar to religion. But a country is tied to being more objective, with borders, citizenship, developed nations, standard of living, etc. But in the end, it is still just a belief system. Now, these developed countries that did well with industrial revolution want the power to be with them because they are more civilized. The East, which had a drastically different way of life, is now magnetized to industrial revolution. One of the great Indian engineer had said, industrialize or perish. So everyone must jump on the bandwagon if they want to keep up with the pace of the world or the West. Now, like any other system, the West is getting beaten up in its own game by the East. And that is disturbing their status quo. They have established as the leaders and peacemakers, and so the West must form alliances to defend that status quo. I mean, how dare the balance change? How dare you? And to think that this monopoly is being civilized is hilarious. We are not in any way civilized. Probably the tribals are more civilized than those people with fancy degrees and ideologies, because tribe does not dictate others. They mind their own business. The whole brainwashing of developed nation is based on ideas. We define being civilized to be living with certain standards, with clean water, air, and with restrooms, etc. I mean, did humans not survive before all that? This idea of cleanliness itself is an idea. Idea of longevity of life is an idea. But we all give in to comfort and outsourcing to systems. We don't want to deal with our own mess in the open. We would rather cover it up, stand on it with clean clothes and a bright smile. I want to tell a small story. I was with my family in Norway many years ago, and our guide was this woman from, I think she was an immigrant from Croatia. I don't know, I can't remember the country, but anyway, she was telling us that she was visiting India many years ago, and she was bitterly hurt, and she was very sad to the core to see the unhygienic way of life and how everything was in the open in India. And she was really sad to see all these poor people on the streets. She was almost like in depression and couldn't stop crying. So this other lady, who was also a backpacker from New York, just like her, she explained it to her that it was all about sensitivity. It had nothing to do with being developed or being poor. And then she explained that how in New York, all the shit is just covered and it still flows underground. It is still there, just out of sight. That's all. And so we mask everything. People in developing nations are made to believe that their country is somehow backward and needs to catch up. They are brainwashed to believe and compared constantly that the right way to live is how developed countries and rich people are living. Some don't care either way. They prefer to defecate in the open, Probably they are the sane ones left, the last of the resistance. I mean, we are so artificial when living in the developed society. Everything about us is made up. But given the short history of modern post-industrial revolution era, it is more likely that the new system will break out, or a new system will break out, and we perhaps would go towards matured civilization like the one in the East, instead of the Eastern countries becoming developed. Now, it is a speculation, but there is movement both ways towards each other. So developed nations want to protect their borders, their civilized way of life, like how we protect our home at an individual level. And then the governing or ruling authority of these developed nations throw some breadcrumbs just to keep the less fortunate ones out of the way, with some hope. If you behave properly, we will not bomb you, or that cooperate with us, give us oil, and we will keep our troops here for you and for your safety, to keep you safe from the defiant neighboring country. In today's online socially motivated media, and by interlinking of people around the globe, a rapid mass hypnosis and brainwashing or social engineering is undoubtedly possible and very much prevalent. But who is the doer? Well, everyone is part of it. Me and you. We all are. We all want status quo more than anything. War and peace are two sides of the same coin. One who says I'm against war has already started a war. Your idea of peace is also an idea against something and is feeding the war. Don't worry about humanity. Humanity doesn't need you. You need the idea of humanity to justify the grander purpose of your mundane living. I want to end with an excerpt from my series All Kal None. While good and bad have no meaning in themselves, it depends on the perceiver. There isn't, and neither can ever be, a universal law for good or bad. It all depends on which side you are on. A storm is beautiful if it is not impacting you. At the same time, debris from it will destroy someone's life. We stay on the side that makes us feel good without any actual impactful action. Well, thank you for listening. Until next time, this is BB Flower signing off. Bye-bye.